Today, I'm going to take just a bit of your time to try and convince you that Bayonetta's quick time events are actually an interesting game design choice. Now, if you know anything about Bayonetta, or maybe if you played it yourself, you might be rushing to punch me in the face right about now. However, if you don't know about Bayonetta, here's a quick history lesson. Released in 2009 by quite possibly my favorite game company around, Platinum Games, Bayonetta is a hack-and-slash game where you play as a witch with amnesia trying to figure out who she is by shooting a bunch of angels with the guns that she has in her heels. It's crazy, it's fun, I love it so much that I played it on every single console it's out right now except for the PS4, and I think it might be out for the Xbox One, but other than that, I played it on the 360, on the PS3, Switch, Wii U. Yes, I played it on the Wii U. I bought a Wii U to play Bayonetta 2, and I regret that. Not Bayonetta 2, that game it's fantastic, but the Wii U, since I ended up playing about 5 games on that console in total. But my regrets aside, as you can see, Bayonetta is some pretty classy stuff. It's very fun and entertaining, in the same vein as Devil May Cry, probably because it was directed by the same guy who directed the very first Devil May Cry game, so you know, that might have had something to do with it. It is a game that invites you to try different weapons out and do fun combos while scoring you in every aspect, so you have an actual objective measure of how good you're getting and how to strive to get better. And because of that, it encourages flow, moving from place to place, from combo to combo, dodging your enemies, and being generally very stylish. And the other side of this gameplay coin is that because of all of that, it is also going to be, by necessity, a game that heavily discourages getting hit. Getting hit in Bayonetta feels pretty bad compared to other games, so imagine how dying feels. Dying in Bayonetta places a permanent skull-shaped tally mark on the game over screen every time you die to make you feel bad about it, and all of those marks are going to be detracted from your score once the level is over. And I'm not a high score kind of guy, but damn, I feel pretty bad when I die in Bayonetta. So imagine if, during a cutscene, out of nowhere, a wild QTE appeared and you had half a second to hit the button before God himself wrecked you and sent you straight to hell without warning, giving you a tally mark to detract points from your score, ruining your run of the level unless you restarted it from the very beginning in a way that is quite honestly not very fair at all. And imagine if that didn't happen too often, but happened just apart enough that you'd forget that could happen before falling for it again. It was certainly not a deal breaker for many fans, but damn if it still wasn't annoying. One can only wonder how this decision went through Hideki Kamiya, the game's director, if it wasn't his idea in the first place, and while I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall of the meeting where they went over this, I was not. I can, however, make an educated guess. Beyond just keeping people on the edge of their seats, I believe Bayonetta's QTEs are thematically appropriate. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, allow me to put on my pretentiousness hat and elaborate on that. Stories can be complicated. Bayonetta is a complex story, not because it is a deeply philosophical one, but because it has all sorts of weird shit thrown into it. But as a story, it does have themes. A story might not have a specific message or moral, but it always has themes. And there are many themes you can choose to analyze in Bayonetta. Witchcraft is a theme, the conflict between angels and demons is a theme, amnesia and the search for identity is a theme. I bet there are tons of feminist themes here. Freaking gun heels could be a theme. Maybe not, but come on, it would be so cool if they were. But my favorite theme though, and the one that is going to help us make the most sense of this odd design decision, is the one that I like to call by a hair's breadth. Get it? Because Bayonetta fights using her hair? Moving on, just pay attention and you'll see Bayonetta is always getting out of situations by a hair's breadth. She's dodging enemy attacks in cutscenes as they cut off her clothes. Early in the game, she can barely outrun a series of breaking parts of a bridge before she unlocks Panther form anyway. And there's even a combat mechanic, the main combat mechanic of the entire game, that revolves entirely around dodging at the last possible second to trigger slow motion. This thing was right next to us the entire time, we just weren't looking for it. So, obviously, an instant kill quick time event makes perfect sense thematically. The player is surprised just like Bayonetta is, and they must react very quickly, just like Bayonetta should, to escape from danger when there's barely any time to do so, thus always escaping by a hair's breadth. just like Bayonetta does, even when you're not controlling her. It reinforces one of the game's main themes through gameplay. On paper, it all makes perfect sense. But in the end though, it didn't click with the rest of the game, and the few instant kill QTEs in the game became infamous ever since its release, and the reason for that is because it blatantly flies in the face of the parts of the game that award high skill play. Like I mentioned before, getting hit feels bad, getting killed feels worse, and tanking your score is the absolute worst. And since 99% of the game is hack and slash gameplay, that means you've been getting more skilled and used to that sort of gameplay, only for the game to throw a massive curveball out of nowhere. In a game where cheap deaths are baked into the central gameplay loop as neat surprises like say Limbo, where dying doesn't matter and you respawn 10 seconds from where you died, that might have been fine, funny even, but in Bayonetta it isn't. And it's why, while I love Wonderful 101 and all of its fun gimmicks, I can see why some people are frustrated by them. In fact, in Bayonetta itself, there's already a very long shoot-em-up segment that is very fun, in my opinion at least, but it ends in the final boss battle against Jean, which is arguably the hardest battle in the entire game, and if you die there, you just have to reset the entire chapter and play through the shoot-em-up section again if you want to get a good score. So you can see how that might aggravate the people who want to get perfect scores. So while the QTEs didn't end up working as well in practice as they did on paper, what I want you to hear is to help you understand that even the most baffling of game design decisions might actually have a lot of thought put into them, and that devs aren't just throwing darts at boards for mechanics to put into their games, except for when they probably did, but also that even the decisions that make the most sense thematically on paper can clash with the gameplay when implemented, or vice versa, which in the best cases can result in some hilarious ludonarrative dissonance or whatever the kids call it these days, and in the worst case scenario it can end up just being plain frustrating. What makes sense when you're working up close might not end up working out as good as you think, so whatever you're working on, step back, take a deep breath, ask for different opinions, and most importantly, don't forget to like and subscribe.
If you're just gonna watch, I'm putting you to the work. That was your last call.